11 years ago, a pair of missing individuals, Ray Larson and Nicole Edwards, were found deceased in sealed sleeping bags inside an abandoned mine in northern Arizona. A group of cavers discovered the bodies during their regular cave exploration hobby. The discovery, rather than shedding light on the case, only added to the enigma surrounding their disappearance and death. To unravel this puzzling story, we must travel back to June 2010. 26-year-old Ray Larson and 24-year-old Nicole Edwards were an ordinary couple residing in Phoenix who loved the simplicity of nature. They had been together for approximately 2 years and enjoyed leisurely trips. Ray worked as a graphic designer while Nicole was a nurse. Their preferences leaned towards tranquil pursuits like camping and stargazing rather than adrenaline-pumping sports or wilderness expeditions. In late June, they planned a brief journey through northern Arizona. The route was uncomplicated. Drive north, explore the Grand Canyon, and then return, stopping at points of interest along the way. They prepared everything necessary: a tent, sleeping bags, a camping stove, provisions, water, and a camera to capture moments. For them, it was simply another romantic weekend escape. On Friday morning, they embarked in their vehicle, a well-maintained silver Toyota Corolla sedan, harboring no apprehensions or unusual forebodings. Contrarily, as reported by their acquaintances, they appeared to be cheerful and eager for the journey. Their last known alive encounter was on Saturday, June 12th. They stopped at a gas station close to the southern entry of Grand Canyon National Park. The cashier later remembered them as an ordinary young couple. They purchased fuel, a water bottle, and a packet of chips. Ray was driving while Nicole sat in the passenger seat, examining a map. They didn't engage with anyone and seemed composed. The cashier didn't detect any cars following them or anyone tailing them. After refueling, they continued south on Highway 180. This was the last verified sighting of them. Since then, silence. Nicole was expected to phone her mother on Sunday night. It was a regular ritual. She always contacted her after a trip. The call never arrived. At first, her mother wasn't anxious. Perhaps they were delayed. Maybe there was no cell reception. Such incidents had occurred previously. On Monday morning, when Ray and Nicole failed to show up for work, alarm ensued among their colleagues. By Monday evening, over 24 hours past their expected return, their families submitted missing persons reports to authorities. The police initiated standard protocols, issuing a warrant to trace their cell phones and bank cards. The phones had been inactive since Saturday, last signaling near the gas station where they were last spotted. The bank cards remained unused since the gasoline purchase. This was an ominous sign, as most who get lost or extend their vacation continue to use their phones and funds. A search mission commenced, with police and volunteers scouring the Highway 180 region. Helicopters scanned the extensive northern Arizona landscape from above, encompassing forests, canyons, and desert regions. Locating something here was akin to searching for a needle in a haystack. The hunt persisted for numerous days without success, revealing no car or traces. It appeared as if Ray and Nicole had vanished into nothingness. A Forest Service patrolman discovered their vehicle a week after their June 19th disappearance. The Toyota was stationed at the intersection of an antiquated, deserted logging road several dozen miles south of where they were last spotted. The road plunged deep into the forest and was barely noticeable from the main highway. The car was secured. Upon first sight, everything seemed intact. There were no shattered windows or indications of forced entry. However, as the forensic team accessed the vehicle, the puzzles multiplied. Everything inside remained in its original position. Their tent, 2 sleeping bags, and backpacks filled with clothing were situated in the back seat. In the glove compartment lay documents and wallets containing cash and bank cards belonging to Ray and Nicole. On the front seat sat an open map and a partially consumed bag of chips. The car keys rested on the driver's seat. There was no evidence whatsoever of a struggle, no bloodstains, torn clothes, or signs of anyone else being present. It seemed as if Ray and Nicole had exited the vehicle, leaving all their possessions behind. This scenario was highly illogical. Why would they leave the car with its keys, documents, and cash inside? If they went for a walk, why didn't they take essentials like water or their phones? the police conducted an extensive search of the surrounding area. Sniffer dogs detected a scent, but it faded after a few hundred yards on a rocky expanse where further tracking became impracticable. No other footprints were found except for those of Ray and Nicole's boots leading away from the car. No signs were present of another vehicle that might have arrived to take them away. Forensic analysts examined the vehicle for prints, discovering only those of Ray and Nicole, no others. The hypothesis they'd gone missing was quickly disproven. They had all necessary survival items in the car, ruling out voluntary disappearance as well. Leaving behind their money and documents suggested something other than a suicide preparation. It appeared to be a drive for some purpose, yet the strange abandonment of the vehicle left investigators puzzled. The primary theory was kidnapping, but it didn't align with the facts either. There were no signs of struggle near or in the car, suggesting an attack elsewhere. Could they have stopped to assist someone on the road or been approached by individuals posing as police? This line of thought guided investigators. They questioned anyone driving on Highway 180 that day. Investigators scoured through CCTV footage from gas stations and stores within a 100-mile vicinity. It was an arduous undertaking. Multiple eyewitnesses recounted seeing a comparable silver sedan on the day in question, yet none could recall any peculiar incidents. No one spotted anyone trailing them or halting at any location to converse with someone. The investigation hit a brick wall. For several more weeks, searches persisted, yet yielded no results. The forest lay hushed. Teams of volunteers and law enforcement scoured hundreds of square miles. They inspected deserted buildings, decaying shacks, and delved into small ravines. In vain. Ultimately, the active search was terminated. The case of Ray Larson and Nicole Edwards was labeled cold. Images of the joyful duo adorned police stations and bulletin boards. Their families remained hopeful and patient, but with each elapsed year, their optimism dwindled. For 11 years, the case stagnated. No new leads, no witnesses, merely a void, a stark lack of data. It seemed as though the earth had engulfed Ray and Nicole entirely. Indeed, in time, it was revealed that this is exactly what transpired. Years elapsed, during which their case remained buried in the archives. Occasionally, a new detective tasked with cold cases would revisit the file, only to reach the same dead end each time. There wasn't a shred of evidence. It was as if they had never existed. In an era defined by digital technology, where every action leaves a trail, Ray and Nicole vanished without a trace. Their tale became fodder for internet forums centered on unsolved crimes. Theorists from far and wide proposed theories, each more bizarre than the last. Some hypothesized that they had become victims of a highway-traveling serial killer preying on tourists. Others speculated that they had discovered an underground drug den hidden in the forest and were silenced as inconvenient witnesses. The police examined these possibilities. They compared this incident with similar disappearances across the country. No matches were found. Investigations revealed no connections between Ray, Nicole, and the criminal underworld. Ordinary individuals, they were. The most prevalent theory among online detectives was that the couple had met someone living as a hermit in the woods, perhaps a veteran suffering from PTSD or simply a sociopath unwilling to be disturbed. According to this hypothesis, Ray and Nicole unintentionally trespassed on his land. They could have been forcibly taken by him at gunpoint. This scenario would explain why they left their vehicle without signs of a struggle. He may have kept them captive for some time before ending their lives. While this theory appeared plausible, it was unprovable. In the expansive forests of northern Arizona, it's hard to find someone untraceable. Ray and Nicole's families tirelessly pursued their search, granting interviews, employing private investigators, and maintaining a dedicated website. However, as time wore on, hope dwindled. The case transformed into a chilling local folklore, a haunting tale of a vanishing couple engulfed by the forest. But in October 2021, this myth took a startling turn to fact. It was triggered by a group of 3 amateur spelunkers. These seasoned explorers spent their weekends delving into the forgotten mines scattered across the area. Many of these mines date back to the 19th century gold rush and were not mapped or had entrances concealed by vegetation. On that day, they discovered one such mine. The entrance was nearly obstructed by rocks and overgrown with bushes, indicating no recent activity. Struggling to clear the rubble, they uncovered a vertical chasm plunging into darkness. Estimating its depth at around 100 feet or 30 meters, it appeared both perilous and intriguing. They equipped themselves with ropes and commenced their descent, the veteran explorer leading the way. The air was oppressive, redolent with the aroma of damp soil and decay. His headlamp's beam darted over the rough walls of the shaft, adorned with mineral deposits. Upon reaching the base, the caver surveyed the area. Debris and rocks littered the bottom of the shaft. Shining his flashlight into a distant corner, he halted. Two elongated items lay there, propped against the wall. Old sleeping bags, one blue and the other green. At first, he presumed they were discarded trash left by someone long ago. However, as he drew nearer, an unsettling feeling overcame him. The cloth was worn and speckled with dirt, yet it was evident they hadn't rested for a century. What baffled them most was the bag's zippers, sewn shut, not merely zipped but stitched along their entire length using thick, rough thread that resembled rope. The uneven stitches suggested manual work. At this instant, the explorer understood he had discovered more than mere trash. A faint yet distinct scent of decay wafted through the air. He refrained from touching anything. He communicated to his colleagues above that they needed to leave promptly and contact the police. Once they emerged, they struggled to find a signal for their cell phones and dialed 911. The county sheriff and several deputies eventually arrived at the site, necessitating off-road vehicles for the journey due to its seclusion and walking the final stretch. After sealing off the location, the sheriff determined it might be a crime scene. A team of forensic specialists was summoned. The task was laborious and time-consuming. Initially, they needed to fortify access into the mine. Later, a forensic expert descended to record all findings at the site. He captured multiple images of the sleeping bags from various perspectives and gathered air and soil specimens nearby. Only after this did the retrieval process commence. The bags were handled with extreme caution, one by one, employing a mechanical block and pulley system. Upon resurfacing, they were transferred into sealed containers and promptly dispatched to a medical examiner's laboratory. At this juncture, investigators were nearly certain that they had discovered the bodies of Ray Larson and Nicole Edwards. No other couples had vanished under similar circumstances in the area during the preceding 11 years. The lab verified their deepest concerns. Upon opening the bags, human skeletal remains were uncovered. 100% positive identification was made through dental records, revealing the deceased as Ray Larson and Nicole Edwards. The 11-year-long search had come to an end, but the investigation commenced with unraveling fresh, perplexing enigmas. The autopsy findings left even seasoned detectives in shock. Ray Larson's demise was a result of a traumatic brain injury inflicted by a heavy blunt object striking the back of his skull, the impact being severe enough to be fatal. Nicole Edwards showed signs of strangulation due to damage to her neck bones. They had been brutally murdered. This wasn't a disappearance case, it was a double homicide. However, the most puzzling and confounding fact emerged from the forensic entomologist and pathologist's report. By assessing the condition of the remains and the residual insect activity, experts came to a conclusion that significantly altered the crime scene picture. The bodies of Ray and Nicole weren't hastily buried in the mine following their deaths. Instead, they had been left elsewhere for at least 24 hours and perhaps up to 48. This suggested that their killers didn't act impulsively in a woodland rage, but rather carefully killed them, moved the bodies, and concealed them for a day or two before transporting them to this abandoned mine, wrapping them in sleeping bags and discarding them. This detail invalidated all straightforward theories. It appeared less like an encounter with a psychopathic woods hermit and more like a premeditated, meticulously planned scheme to conceal the bodies. Someone went to considerable lengths to dispose of them. Yet the question remained as to why and where they were hidden for such a long time. No indications of violence on the sleeping bags or the bodies suggested methods of transportation. Momentum appeared to be building in the investigation, but it had instead hit a new enigmatic and complex dead end. The authorities now possessed both the bodies and the causes of death, yet the motive behind these crimes and the identity of the murderer remained as elusive as they were 11 years ago. The unearthing of Ray and Nicole's remains did not bring closure to the case. Rather, it resurrected it, placing the investigation in a precarious predicament. The main conundrum that detectives grappled with was the time frame surrounding the killings and the concealment of the bodies, a span of 24 or even 48 hours. This suggested that the murderer was not merely a spur-of-the-moment psychopath who killed a couple in the woods and hastily buried the remains. Instead, this individual had access to a secure location to hide the corpses for up to 2 days. Be it a basement, a secluded garage, an abandoned shed, or some other concealed structure where they would not be disturbed. The suspect was likely a local or someone with regular access to an area property, as the possibility of a transient serial killer or tourist diminished. Police re-examined the case, focusing on 2 critical locations: the site where the car was found and the mine where bodies were discovered, approximately 50 miles apart by road, including rugged forest paths. Navigating this distance required a suitable vehicle like an SUV or pickup truck, along with extensive local knowledge. The killer's familiarity with the hidden mine entrance suggested a local resident, strengthening this hypothesis. Investigators delved into archive data and scrutinized property owners within several dozen miles of the mine. Investigators scrutinized lists of individuals with a history of violent crimes residing in the region in 2010, including hunters, ex-miners, and forest workers knowledgeable about the woods. Despite the extensive effort, their inquiries turned up no leads, as none of the suspects had a plausible motive or an alibi for the relevant time frame. Criminologists zeroed in on evidence from the mine, with sleeping bags and burlap sacks becoming the focal points of the investigation. The nylon fabric used in these bags was ubiquitous, and so was the twine. No distinctive fibers or manufacturing indicators were discovered. DNA traces were sought, but prospects were slim given the bags had been underground for 11 years. Some unidentified fragments were found, yet they were too degraded to be identified. No fingerprints, hair strands, or other evidence emerged that could reveal the culprit's identity. This was another fruitless pursuit. 11 years on, the suspect may have worn gloves or merely benefited from luck. With fresh data, the police reinterrogated witnesses. They revisited the gas station attendant, tourists staying at nearby campsites, and residents of small towns along the highway. However, after 11 years, human memory is not always trustworthy. No one could recall any new information. The police made a fresh public appeal, this time with specifics. They requested anyone who noticed unusual activity near the mine, discovered in June 2010, to come forward. People might have heard an odd car noise at night or spotted lights in the forest where they shouldn't be present. There were responses, but all reports turned out either incorrect or irrelevant. Now investigators are attempting to construct a psychological profile of the killer. This was a man who displayed extreme cruelty yet acted calmly and deliberately. The offender employed distinct methods to end the lives of 2 individuals, one by sheer violence, the other by silent, personal strangulation. This suggests a lone killer who first subdued Ray as a potential physical adversary before targeting Nicole. His strength was sufficient for him to relocate both bodies independently. His actions were meticulous, with each stage from murder, storage, transportation, concealment, requiring careful planning. The key question, the motive, remained unexplained. It wasn't robbery, as all valuables were abandoned in the vehicle. Could it be sexual assault? However, due to advanced decomposition, the medical examiner could not provide a definitive answer. This chilling possibility lingered. There was no indication of personal retribution. Neither Ray nor Nicole had known adversaries or hidden transgressions, at least none that were publicly known. The most unsettling and probable scenario remained. Ray and Nicole found themselves in unfortunate circumstances. Inadvertently crossing paths with a secretive predator dwelling among the common populace, they met a man intimately familiar with the local wilderness, utilizing it as his hunting ground. Pretending to halt them on the road for some reason or another, or perhaps stopping them while they captured a landscape photo, their initial moments together will always be enshrouded in mystery. However, the conclusion of this encounter was anything but ordinary. He slaughtered them. Instead of fleeing in haste, he composed himself and transported the bodies to his residence or another hidden location he knew well. He left them there for a brief period, possibly waiting for the perfect time to dispose of them permanently. The macabre act of wrapping the bodies in sleeping bags served as the climax in this ritualistic concealment process. This was done not only to mask the corpses, but also to convert them into anonymous cargo. To this day, the murder of Ray Larson and Nicole Edwards remains unsolved. Again, it's cold outside, yet the case has been upgraded to double homicide. The investigators have identified the victims, know the manner and location of their deaths, but lack any substantial leads regarding the perpetrator. The grieving families have received their children's remains, but justice remains elusive. The killer, who managed to keep his deeds hidden for 11 years, is likely still at large. He could be a neighbor, colleague, or simply a resident of a small Arizona town. A man who on one fateful day in June 2010 encountered a young couple on a forest road, ended their lives, and then resumed his routine as if nothing had transpired. The Arizona desert thus continues to harbor its secret.